Hello and welcome to 60 Minutes or Less, a new podcast from Verticate for Breakfast. I'm Andy Hughes, and off the back of our last episode, we continue on with noise rock frontmen for episode 8, featuring a chat with Alex Edkins, guitarist and choice shouter in gnarly power trio METZ. Formed in Ontario, Canada, METZ have been wrecking heads for 15 plus years, with 5 studio albums now under their collective belts. Their latest, Up on Gravity Hill, was released just under a fortnight ago in April 2024 on Sub Pop. It's a treat to have a new METZ record in our lives, particularly as we were so enamoured with their last one, Vending, and, well, we're pretty much enamoured with everything they put out there. On top of killer records, the trio are killer merchmen too, and always have some swish clobber available to wear upon your person. On top of keeping an eye out for new releases from them, we're always keen beans for whatever rad long sleeve they've got coming out. It's something which we got into when I spoke with Alex over Zoom in mid-April, a few days away from releasing their new record. It's a big chat with a total dude. I think you'll dig it. If you like what you hear, rate us 5 stars, tell your loved ones, and share 60 minutes or less on the internet. You could even print off transcripts and leave them lying about your local library. The choice is yours. Okay, enjoy. Yeah, how's it going, Alex? Nice to properly meet you.
Yeah, you too. Things are good here.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
We recently spoke with your label mate, Philip from Omni, and it was morning over there when we interviewed him as well, which I assume it is in Canada. And he was having a mild hipster morning of chaining loads of coffees and sorting out his vinyl collection. How do we catch you this morning? And I take it it's morning over there?
It is. It's 11, so it's not too early. Yeah, I'm having quite a few coffees, though, just to stay focused.
What have you got ahead of you?
We are going to be rehearsing because the record comes out in 2 days on Friday, and we are doing a small sort of in-store at a local record shop to celebrate. So yeah, just getting ready for that. And of course, the tour with Gouge Away starts on Tuesday. At least we head out on Tuesday for Boston, which is then on Wednesday. So it's chaos over here, really.
How do you prepare for that? Because you've got a son, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you, in the run up to things like tour and installs and such, how do you prepare for that? Because, even just leading up to knowing that you have something on at 4 p.m., the rest of my day is always, thinking about what the interview or what have you. So how do you, the three of you, prep for that sort of thing and get into that headspace other than the fact that, as you say, it could be chaos?
Yeah, I think we all deal with it very differently. For me, I just want to make the time at home, as good as it can be, and spend a lot of time with my son. And the good thing is that now, on tour, I can still see him every day and talk to him every day. It is something that like he's grown up with. He I think understands it, but it's still pretty stressful and something that's like kind of heavy on my mind for doing what we do. But leaving all the time is something that I think about a lot, and just try to make it as smooth as possible for my family. And I think the way to do that is just sort of to be open with discussion and everything, and make sure that he's aware of where I'll be going, and kind of include him in that. So that's something I try to do for sure.
I heard on another podcast, not with you, with a British comic, and he was saying that they now have to prep their video call time when they're on the road and stuff with their kid because sometimes he will, video call during bath time or what have you, and it's like completely the inappropriate time. So is there like a level of that sort of prep as well?
Oh, sure. And I mean, depending on where you are in the world, it can be difficult. Touring is one of those things where every day is the same, but every day is different. When load in is, when sound check is, when the show starts, and when what time you get back to the hotel. And that's usually after the show is what I find is the best time for me. And sometimes, wherever you are in the world, that will work out. Where were we? It was like I would finish a show and then they'd be waking up and having breakfast and we'd chat then. And that was like, you know, one way to do it that seemed to work. But yeah, you're constantly adapting and trying to be creative with it.
I suppose as well, the buzz that you've got knowing that you're going to speaking to them keeps it alive rather than I've got to go and make this phone call at 11 p.m. or what have you.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it makes your day. I mean, it really, if too much time passes, it starts to be, oh, something's off. And you go, oh, yeah, it's, I haven't seen or talked to my family. So, yeah, I try to every day and, it is, makes all the difference.
Mm.
Makes for a successful headspace. I got a happy headspace and then, a successful tour in the end.
So amazingly, we're 3+ years on from the release of your last album, Atlas Vending,
Yeah, that's crazy.
and helped in part. Sorry, my dog is trying to get to a treat, so I'll ask this question and then I will go and assist him.
No problem.
Sorry about that. He's been fine all day, and then as soon as record, he starts to
Of course.
go nuts. So yes, 3+ years on from the release of Atlas Vending, and helped in part due to when it came out. We were personally temporarily obsessed with it, and a number of records that came out over that period. And obviously, we don't want to drag up lockdown and the pandemic. And even though it was 3+ years ago, it still seems so recent. But was there anything personally that you yourself became obsessive with during that weird time?
I I just got really into trying to make as much music as possible. And oddly enough, it wasn't METZ music because, like you said, we had just released that record and we had put so much time and effort into it that it was it seemed like impossible to sort of dive back in. I know a lot of musicians can do that. They can just, okay, done, next. I think because of our years and years of being on this cycle of releasing and then touring, and just being and that not happening and that feeling very strange and sort of alienating and just being like, wow, what's going on? I was, I think, still in that headspace, so I couldn't start another METZ record, so I decided to like obsessively make other things, and that helped a lot.
Yeah. I mean, my partner got into making cocktails as soon as we were locked down, and that was her thing. So I can understand that sort of process of making, yeah, but from a different
Sure.
point.
Bread was a big one, so like around here, we didn't do it, but everyone was making sourdough left, right, and center.
Banana bread was the UK thing for some. So you mentioned at the time of speaking, we are 2 days away from the new record up on Gravity Hill. So compared to when Atlas Vending came out, obviously it's a completely different landscape, not just, what's all the problems that are going on in the world, but a musical landscape as well. So when you announced the album, you said now more than ever that, the act of writing and recording music that doesn't simply feed algorithms seems so increasingly rare. And, what you guys do is important. That last part wasn't what you said, but, it was, suggested. So
Mm.
in terms of the three of you and like in your camp, how does it feel to be ahead of release week and know that you've got this record that's on the way?
It's really exciting. I think this time around, I think we're really conscious to like actually celebrate and actually take a breath. I know that often it's just go go go, and like I said, we are gonna tour next week, but yeah, something feels different about this one. It feels like we got through this really tough period that I guess no one could have predicted, and no one knew how to cope with it. And I think we all came out different people, and this record is unconsciously, I think, a response to that and a response to where we are as individuals in a band now. So I'm more than ever kind of proud of where we're at and excited to see where we can take it and see how this tour kind of where it leads us.
Just thinking off the top of my head, I mean, obviously things like this with the pandemic and such, we wouldn't want that to happen, and it's not something that, people would want. But do you think that kind of helped in a way for maybe bands like yourself to establish, where they are and what they're up to?
Well, it's not something we ever discuss. I do think that we have always been interested in sort of progressing, but we've done it at a very, I think, to some unnoticeable kind of speed. Like it's been a glacial thing, but that extra time created by the pandemic, I think now, I think maybe some people go, "Oh, this is a big difference," in sound, in songs. But to me, it isn't, and it hasn't been. It's just been this gradual progression, and yeah, 4 years in between or so, right? Something like that, or 3 years, and so a lot changes there, and a lot, and I think you hear it.
Do you think as well that comes from you're in it, so to speak? So elsewhere, people might say because they will have established the time length that's gone on, but for you guys, you're as well as your solo release and the art that Hayden does and such, you're obviously directly involved. So do you think that's a case as well of noticing that progression and such?
Oh, of course. Yeah. What's monumental to us is maybe not, decipherable to some listeners. We do something in the studio like, oh man, love that. That's such a new thing for us. Just like goes unnoticed. So yeah, no, we're totally like living in this thing, and we don't expect anyone to really fully understand what that's like, but you still hope at the end of the day that what you're working so diligently at and with putting so much time and energy and passion into this thing, I think you're hoping that that's gonna resonate with other people. That's not the end goal, that's not the be all end all, but it's in all writers, musicians, painters, I think they all, there's a part of them that wants that to connect with people.
Yeah. Around the time of the last record, I read that one of you said, you embarked on the production with the goal to be more patient and honest. I heard bassist Chris suggest that the first two records were pretty rapid, in getting them out, given the momentum of off the back of the first one, touring and such. Obviously, now you've got more time to work with. Press releases are a funny thing when it comes to bands because there's a lot in, you know,
Yep.
hasn't it will have gone from the band to skim through, but so maturity crops up quite a bit, and I think this comes off what we've just been talking about. Is that something that you're conscious of in the production of things? And in a sense, what does the idea of maturity mean to you, or is it just kind of like a buzz?
Yeah, I don't really agree with that term. I think it was the Hive singer who said it, and I agree. He's just like, who on earth would want to hear a mature rock and roll band? And it's true. It's like I don't think that's the right term to describe. I think it's more about not wanting to repeat yourself. I mean, I think this record is very much an honest representation of the three of us, our love of music, and a punk record and a heavy record. It's also quite clearly not the first record, and I think that's important to all three of us, that we're not stuck in that rut, because we are just huge music fans, and there's so much that we love, and there's so much that I think has, over all the years of playing together, but even before that, just going to shows, punk and hardcore shows, and you just consume all this great music, and then it comes out in ways that you can't really control, and Yeah, and in the end, it's just about kind of making the song what it needs to be, and not asking any questions, not second guessing. So I think that is all we ever do when we're going into the studio. It's sort of like there's no reference points. There's no, hey, let's sound like this. Hey, let's make a record like this. It's like, okay, these are the songs. What do they need to what do we need to do to them to make them feel right to us? And that's what we did this time, as you know, as we always do, or attempt to do.
I do like the idea of a band describing themselves as a mature rock band, though. I think that's
But that's Radiohead or something, right? You know.
that's those guys, yeah. I did want to touch on that actually. You've kind of gone there already, but there seems to be between the three of you such a musical bond. And personally, I read or I heard that you said yourself you'd been listening to a lot of Low during some of the writing process. Does that ever, the musical aspect, ever come into it with the three of you, or is that more of like a behind the scenes type of thing of, like you say, still going to shows and such?
I think the reason why we're still playing together and making records is because our touchstones are so similar. Like it was this instantaneous chemistry when we first started to play together, and it was because we grew up in the same type of music community, and we were all obsessives, going to as many shows as possible, seeing everything and anything that we could. So yeah, there just seems to be a genuine hive mind there where it's like we rarely disagree on things like that. It's usually like we know pretty instantly, if that's something we're all gonna jive on. So yeah, there's never been any creative friction that way, which is really cool. Like when I even went on this record, when I brought in ideas like Light Your Way Home, which is certainly a departure and something we've never done, even if you just talk about the tempo of it, let alone the sort of atmosphere of it and the fact that it's more or less like a love song or something. Like Chris and Hayden were like, love that. Let's do that. And that's a pretty amazing feeling to just all feel like we're on the same page.
Interestingly, you say about the hive mind aspect. How do you think it would have been coming to grips with, the idea of bringing this fully formed thing into the idea, and Chris and Hayden just said, "Oh no, that sounds too slow,"
Oh,
or
well,
have you?
that's happened. I mean,
Okay.
that's totally happened. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it doesn't happen a lot, but it has happened. And there's a song on the Weird Nightmare record called "Oh No,"
Hmm.
and it's kind of a banger. It's not like it's because it was gentle or anything, but at that time, and I think it was probably the making of our second album, it just wasn't, you know, ticking the boxes. I think it was something about the beat being too straight, being like just wasn't like making everyone happy. And so I don't think I was begrudging and like, fine. But, just I filed it away and, came back to it at another time when it felt right. But yeah, it's not like there's always going to be things like that. And that's why I think METZ is cool. And I think going off and doing other projects really magnified my love for the band and for the guys and for like how they approach music. And it's pretty cool. Yeah, it was like the shittiness of the pandemic and the time away almost made us love it more coming back, and it feels like super exciting right now.
So it's it's exciting not just in your camp, but it's exciting here as well to get an email come in your inbox to say there's a new METZ record. There's always two bands that I'm on the lookout for when it comes into my inbox. It's either you guys or the OCs.
That's awesome.
And so the new record was officially announced on Valentine's Day this year. And conveniently, lead single 99 is, a comment on corporate greed and the very real idea that everything is financially driven. Does it feel, impossible at times with the way everything's shoved down your throat just to carry on. That sounds a bit dark, actually, but it does feel
I know
some,
what you're saying.
yeah. And on the flip side, does it feel quite good actually, in a sense, to have something to crack on with from a songwriting standpoint?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, you can flip anything and use it as fuel. But yeah, it's pretty hard to have a positive outlook sometimes. And I mean, if even if you just think of this microcosm of indie rock or punk music, or it is like climbing a hill, man. It's like it is, you gotta love it, or there's absolutely no reason for you to be doing it. I think some people don't really understand that. I think it's like they might think of a band like us as, I don't know, like maybe what a band was in the 90s, like but what they're missing is like the amount of money that was injected into the industry then. It's like that's gone. Like this thing is just hanging on. And I just mean like anyone who is touring around with guitars and playing small clubs. It's like this is a labor of love. And sometimes it's like incredibly frustrating when you feel like maybe people don't get that, and they kind of have expectations of you that are just disconnected from reality, I guess. So, we are not young guys, and we are doing this out of sheer love and passion for this music that we're making, and for, because we all fell in love with this music community and this scene and this kind of thing when we were too young to turn back. Like, or too old to turn back, I should say. So yeah, it's like that can be super stressful at times, and it can be, you can question your sanity. You're like, what am I doing? But that but then on a good day, it's a source of pride, and you don't question it at all. You're just like, you know, there's nothing I'd rather, obsess over and put all my time into than this. But I think everyone can kind of understand that, when it comes to life decisions. Am I as happy as I could be if I did something else? It's like, who's to say? I think at the end of the day, I think we feel fortunate and lucky to have this thing that means so much to us and other people, that we made out of nothing. I don't think it's ever really lost on us that it's a bit of an anomaly when you can do what we do, and and call it like a full-time job. It's like that's what it's turned into for us. So yeah, I'm rambling, but that's where I'm at. It's day to day, man.
Taking it each day as it comes. Well, it's like Matt from Pissed Jeans recently said something, similar about how they're not so much financially driven as newer bands have to be, kind of, in
Mm.
today's world, and about how it's more about doing it for the love of it. And do you think that's definitely helped with the longevity of METZ and your outlook? Because I suppose as well, like you say, you've come from this period when you were kids of going to those DIY shows where there were maybe 20 people there in the room, but it meant everything to the band and the
Yeah.
kids. So do you think that certainly helps in terms of being able to just crack on because of the love of it?
Yeah, I think it's just what we actually, as three people, believe. Like, we do believe that it's important, and we do remember that feeling of that close knit kind of community and the effect that can have on someone. Yeah, I think it's absolutely, yeah, it's helped. It in that, if we had these delusions of massive sort of success while making this music, I think, someone would have pulled the parachute cord by now,
Yeah.
because it's just not about that. And I can't really put into words exactly what it's about, but yeah, we're all coming from it, I think, with a good head on our shoulders and knowing what it is that we're trying to get out of it. And a lot of that is just creativity and having this outlet. Not to mention, now that we've been doing this so long, we have friends all over the world. We have that community has grown. That's a huge part of it too. Like that's a beautiful part of our lives, and it's enriched our lives, I think.
I thought it was interesting what you said on a podcast recently when you were talking about Weird Nightmare. And you said with METZ, you were almost trying to sneak melodies into songs that are made up of insane guitar chords, bombastic beats, and fuzzed out bass. And that's such a spot on take, I would say, for the sound of METZ. And on the new record, songs like Entwined and Superior Mirage do just this. I don't know about you, but it almost feels like songs are like kind of like a reverse Trojan horse in a way, unless I've got what a Trojan horse is the wrong way around. Do you know what I mean?
You're gonna have to explain it. I think I know what you mean. Like,
Yeah. So for the noise fans or like the punk heads, getting in there with all these mad guitar parts and such, and Hayden's like shotgun drums, but then you've got the
mhm.
melodies and the hooky chorus and such.
Yeah, it's just I think it's honestly just improving at our craft, at what we've always been attempting to do, but maybe having grown and become more accomplished as players, I think that's part of it for sure. Certainly a little bit more open to melody. I think it's sort of, and then of course the lyrics like follow what we can, what kind of world we can create musically. Then the lyrics follow that, because that's the kind of always my, it's my second step. It's never like I'm not someone who writes lyrics first and then kind of writes around it. So yeah, it allowing for those sorts of moments on this record definitely kind of also then shaped what the songs were about, which was really interesting. We sort of allowed ourselves to go different places, and then the songs very noticeably started to take different shapes lyrically, if that makes sense.
For sure. And I mean, you've said elsewhere, away from the consumerism of 99, lyrically, you've been more heart on sleeve on this record, particularly more so than you've ever allowed yourself to be previously. Is there a certain catharsis in being so personal lyrically? And where do you look for inspiration with this sort of material?
Yeah, I think just as I get older, it's like I have less hangups when it comes to sharing exactly what's going on. And I realize, that that's what the beauty of music often can be, is when someone is not not varnishing their words. It's just like right there. That's what I hope to do. It's still, something I work at, but every single record I think I've been able to open up a little bit more and more and more. But I think a big part of it is the music allowing me to do that, because it never would have felt right to sing about these things to a 2-minute banger. It just
Sure.
it doesn't fit. So I mean, it's common sense, really. It's like that's nothing new, but it's something that we're obviously aware of and like working within those parameters. And it just, when it feels right, it feels right.
And on that, I mean, musically, I don't know whether it's something that was clear to you. I'm sure it was, obviously, but the opener on the new record feels almost like a continuation of A Boat to Drown In. I feel, it's like this huge epic banger at the end of the last record. And then you open the new record with like a slightly less huge, but still, nonetheless, it's quite a lengthy ripper. Is
Mhm.
there ever like an exploration from record to record, picking up where one finished, or are you coming at each new release fresh or?
I mean, I think I would agree with you that those could be seen in the same light, although I'd say No Reservation, which is the first track on our new record,
Hmm.
is a little bit more, it's more like four different movements as opposed to, About to Drown, it could have been two. So that was kind of expanding on that idea. Certainly that riding off into the sunset kind of thing is something that we wanted to go even further with. And that's where Owen did a string arrangement, at the end of that to sort of, we wanted the climax to be wild. And I think those connections that you're seeing are definitely real, but there's just never any kind of conscious planning that goes into it. It's like, and maybe we would have in passing been like, oh yeah, that's gotta, but it's not like intentional, but it was because at the end of the day, we don't know what people want. we know what we want. We know
Yeah,
what we want in that moment. So there would be no reason for us to try to like repeat that because it was like received well. We don't really even know if it was received well. We don't know if people love or hate that song. I'm sure there's a lot of connections between the last two records, and I think big part of that is Seth too, who we worked with on both of them, being there, being that extra member of the band, and he's awesome. He's an awesome person, awesome hang, and also just someone who was definitely not okay with repeating, and
sure.
that was exciting. Yeah, we just weren't gonna. We've done that. Let's not do that again. That was inspiring.
It ties in interestingly, with what I was going to ask next. And you've mentioned Owen and you mentioned Seth. Elsewhere as well, you've got guest vocals on the record from Amber Weber. Does it feel good to have that, collaborative spirit and to have with Seth particularly like a fresh pair of ears on things to bring into the camp?
Oh yeah, I mean it's fantastic, and it's kind of shocking that it took us this long. I think we were very much this insular gang. We were just, no one understands, no one's allowed in, and I think that can be great. I love, like, bands like that are great. It's like the Ramones, and like, you're not one of the Ramones, so you don't get it. I think that can be very powerful, and I think maybe it even was for us in the beginning. But we're in a different headspace, and it was like really exciting to go, well, what does this need? What would make this song better? And the idea of Amber singing on it was just super exciting. I actually saw her play last night in Toronto. She was her band Lightning Dust was performing down the street, and her voice is just insane. It was just so good. I think we made the right decision, and I am so happy that she agreed to do it. Like, it was like one of those really nice honors that she's like, oh yeah, I'd love to, I love the song. And what can you say? It's a really nice kind of, it's a great feeling when people who you respect in their artistry and everything show that same kind of appreciation back. That's the best.
Were you not waiting in the wings at her show? Sorry, their show, waiting for her to bring you on, like like say,
No,
we've done your,
God, no. No, I was bringing her a record. I wanted to make sure she had an LP, and no, just saying hi.
So as well as that, as well as having Owen, Seth, and Amber involved, the drum machine returns on this record, from what I've heard, on Superior Mirage. And we last heard that, as far as I know, on the standalone single Demolition Row.
Mm-hmm.
To these ears, I can't hear, or maybe from what I've heard of the record so far, I haven't heard anything else. But like, is that kind of cool, bringing the drum machine in and doing other things musically and vocally as well that you can add to the Met sound?
Yeah, I think that's exciting for us. But I also, I want to make it clear, we're definitely, I don't think musicians need to change for the sake of change. I think that's kind of
Mm.
absurd. I think maybe that's something that, like, journalists really love, when someone does an about face and now they're doing this, and it's like it makes for a great story, right? But I kind of just look at it as a craft that you trek along this road, and you don't know where the end of the road is, and that's exciting to me. So it's we're not in any rush. to change. I don't even know if we could really, at the end of the day, be anyone but ourselves. But yeah, bringing in new elements, new people into the mix, it's like a great feeling. And it like you were mentioning, it's an easy way to get an extra set of ears and just
Mm.
for someone else's instincts to take over when you've taken it as far as you can. It's like I think there's a certain amount of bravery in handing it over. I think maybe before we would never have trusted someone to do that, to touch our precious little songs. Now it's an exciting notion instead.
Does that definitely come from Seth as well? Is that kind of, as you said earlier, you respect the guy so much by the sounds of it. Is that definitely a helping hand that he's come in and been able to do that?
Yeah, it's just a respect thing. I think we all feel that he has our best interests in mind, and he gets the three of us individually and also just sort of our band trajectory and everything. So yeah, it's a great feeling when you can trust someone with your music. I don't think it comes easily to build that trust. So it's over the last two records where, and I did some Weird Nightmare stuff with Seth too. So it's just been this constant working relationship that's been really good.
I do find that interesting as well, what you said about having, in a way, having the tools for wherever the song takes you or wherever the record takes you. Because I remember a band over lockdown, they bought like, a really cheap synth and they were like, this is us now. We bought the synth online, we bought it on eBay for like 20 quid. So this is our sound now. And it's like, yeah, why not? Rather than
Yeah,
rather than make some elaborate thing about it, they were just like, no, we bought it for 20 quid. We figured out how to use it. And, I suppose it can add the fall did it, didn't they? So, it adds something to, or it can do at least add something to the songs.
I think writing with limitations, like that's creating a limitation. I think that can be really successful, right? Like you're like, I don't play guitar anymore, I play this. And you have to learn that, and you, of course, you're going to approach songwriting differently because of it. It's just that idea of getting out of your comfort zone. And yeah, I love that idea. I embrace that. I think that's kind of, we've always loved the idea of a power trio having these limitations, because even these songs now, they sound different live than they do on this record. There's no limits in the studio, and I think sometimes it's fun to make a maximal sounding record. Like I think there's moments on this record where we want to just sound massive, but we're still a power trio, and when we play these songs live, they're a different beast. And that's always been the case with us. There's always been some production ideas that just can't make it into the live show. So yeah, we're not at the stage of chucking the guitars out yet, but
Next record. A similar theme to, coming off that creativity and, the way using these tools and such. Music videos seem to have always been like a big part of it with you guys, and you've always got something up your sleeve in that department. I take it that's quite an important aspect to the overall. I'm struggling with the word, but like the presentation kind of with a record and a new release.
yeah, we're all kind of neurotic. Like, I think from the very beginning, there's not we sweat all the small stuff. Like just the way we function as a band is very neurotic, and it's very like our fingers are on everything. We're designing the t-shirts, the posters, and videos are one place where again we cherry pick the people we want to work with, but we do leave it to them to sort of decipher the songs. And well, I think we've just been really fortunate to work with awesome directors when it comes to that. And this record's no different, where I feel like there's been some beautiful videos made to elevate the songs. It's kind of tough now. I don't know. I grew up watching music videos on TV, and they were always on. I still see the importance of it. I don't know if people watch them in the same kind of way, like in the same. I mean, my guess is no, because I think you really have to go seek them out. But I think when done well, they can be such a asset to a song and just take it to that other place.
I can imagine it being an art form that is more specialist these days.
For sure, and clearly small budget. There's no one can justify $1 million video like they used to. It used to make sense, I suppose. I mean, I'm sure it didn't even then, but it is. I have a lot of respect for these directors who even agree to do it, because just like being in a rock band, it's like you're doing that. You're not doing it for the cash.
Yeah, you're doing it for the love of it. And
Yeah.
I couldn't leave you without discussing it because when I think of METZ, my mind always goes to this, but artwork is such a big thing with you guys as well. And you are merch machines. There's always, there's like,
Again, that's like our obsession with every little detail. Yeah.
and with this new record, I think there's like maybe 9 things merch wise, including the record itself. And I know that Hayden was at one point, he did like the long sleeve designs and such. So, how important an aspect, obviously, you've touched on it somewhat, but how an important an aspect is that? Because personally, it is about there's a new METZ record coming out, but also there's a new METZ longie coming out. And, there's a new hat and etc.
Well, I used to joke that we're just like a traveling hot topic store,
Yeah.
just merch wielding van. But I don't. I like it's more logistical. Like you have that's part of the industry. You play shows and you sell records and merch, and it's the way that it can work. It's sadly, I think it's the only way it can work. It's just the reality of it. So yeah, if the stuff is unappealing, then you're gonna have a rough tour. It's sort of how you just kind of have to try to. Thankfully, Hayden is a very gifted artist, and we put him to work big time. And with this album, we also tapped an old friend, Sarah Swinar, who is a legitimate artist in the real sense of like being in galleries and stuff, and we've always loved her work, and we asked her if we could use it, and she said, okay, if I can use one of your songs in one of my pieces. Then we're like, perfect. And yeah, so again, it's just trying to work with like-minded people who inspire you, and that's really it. There'll be some long sleeves for you when we come over. Okay.
Perfect. But no, I always do think artwork for a record or a single is so important as well. And I do despair a little bit when not a lot of attention goes into it. But, sometimes that is the point, isn't it? With releases and such, that the art should speak for itself and what have you.
Yeah. There's something great about just those old sleeves too that are just matter of facts. Those have their own style and aesthetic too, but we certainly focused on every little thing, down to the font, down to the spacing, and that goes with the music too. Every little part, every note, the sequence, the mixing, the mastering. It's all part of it, and we love it.
Beautiful. Well, thanks very much, Alex. Pleasure to finally say hello.
Yeah, man. Great to meet you finally. Thanks so much.